Hello and welcome to Talk for Writing in the Virtual Classroom with myself, James Walker, and Jamie Evans. We're both teachers in schools and trainers for Talk for Writing, and in these difficult times we thought we would try and put together a few little short videos to help teachers providing lessons in school, but particularly for those children who are at home. So we're going to talk you through today's session, which is about games and warming up language activities. This is a really key part of Talk for Writing and one that we can easily adapt to working at home. So through these videos, you'll see a few different ways to share, which I'm sure you're aware of in your own schools. So getting children to be included on the chat function in Teams or Zoom or Google Classroom, using Google Forms, which Jamie's going to go through. Then in our next video, we'll talk through Padlet and Loom, two platforms that we can use to get children to be interactive with us. The Talk for Writing home booklets we'll mention. They're coming out very soon to help you with your online learning. Obviously sharing your PowerPoint presentations and just setting work as you normally would do. So there's going to be a range of different ways that we can share with our classes. Yeah, so we'll pass over to Jamie now. He's going to take you through the first game.
Yeah, we thought we'd start off, and this is partly mirroring what happened in my school at Sandgate. And we very much started with the English booklets, and again, these are all still available on the website. And those are loaded with some really great activities that people can be using, really easy just to drag and drop straight into your virtual classroom. And in this one, this has been submitted, as you can see, a child's written it on some paper, they've taken a photo of it, and then they've sent it in. We're using Google Classroom, so it's really easy for them just to send photos in as a submission. I know some people are using emails and things like that. But we started with things like this, and what you can see in that sort of activity is you're almost doing kind of sentence level work. But it's that sentence level work with an edge, if you like. It's as part of this bigger unit. We could be talking about kind of poetry, and actually with something like this, the Unicorn's New Year Wishes, you can see how that leads nicely into working with list poems and these creative structures. We were talking before about the, where is it? I think it's number 10, isn't it? I could turn invisible to steal the crown jewels and jazz dance on the Royal Opera House. These fantastic opportunities for children still to be developing creativity.
Yeah, and those open-ended ones where you can set that task and you could get 20, 30, 40 different responses back in, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could be doing that through the chat feature as well, couldn't we? But with something like this, where you're wanting multiple responses, actually getting children to write it by hand, maybe submitting one of those via the chat is a really useful way of working.
Super.
We've also got things like, this is a bit of a favourite of mine. Again, this is the sort of thing that we could be doing through the chat feature potentially, or getting children to maybe turn their microphones off in a controlled way if we're in a live lesson. But this is the metaphor game. I thought we'd maybe have a quick go at this if you're game for that. So in the metaphor game, you've got to choose an animal and you're just going to compare it to one of the following. So an example being, I could have a giraffe and say a giraffe is a clown on stilts at the circus. A hat stand with no hats, so I could come up with a list. What have you got any ideas?
I'm going to go for a whale. So I've been watching Snail Whale with my daughter quite a lot at home. So I'm going to go for whale. A whale or the whale? The whale is a planet as dark as the ocean, or the whale is it's quite tricky, isn't it? The whale is a dungeon of love going to the depths.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It is quite tricky to do it straight off the cuff, and it's a good example of when, if we're playing games like this with children, we probably do want to be getting them to have a go first before jumping straight onto the chat, because otherwise we tend to have, we know in Talk for Writing, the first idea isn't always your best, so we want that bit of time to work and be thinking a bit more carefully first. And we also don't want the chat just filling up with potentially quite low level ideas.
Like my arsewell.
Yeah, you were on the spot. I'm going to share I've also got here an example of a Google form. And Google Forms, lots of schools that I've been talking to recently are kind of starting to explore this as a way of getting children's submissions as well. Hopefully that should have come up now.
Yeah, that's great.
And this is really, it's quite a user-friendly kind of interface on Google Forms. It's really easy just to set up essentially kind of basic surveys, but you can set questions to them as well. So again, this is from one of the Talk for Writing packs, or the resources rather, but a teacher has adapted it for Google Forms. So if I just scroll down, you can see there's some places there for children to write their answers. And just works maybe, it's a bit more user-friendly than kind of like a Word document or something like that, or getting children to send photos in. Works really nicely on things like mobile phones as well, because obviously a lot of people, I don't know about your school, but we've had a real issue with sort of devices and things like that. So, and we have got children, working on from small phones. So actually Google Forms works quite nicely on that smaller device. And again, they're really adaptable, really easy to use.
You can see lots of different opportunities there, isn't it? Gathering ideas. They could even do sentence work on there, couldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just another way of working, really. I'll just jump back to our PowerPoint. There we are. That should be up. We've got just some other variations, really, on that idea of kind of the sentence level games, a bit like you were saying a moment ago. Again, I think really games like this work really well through the chat. Again, maybe we're getting children to have a go on paper first, but this is more at the sort of innovation level, potentially getting us to do some sentence level work. Do you fancy having a quick go at this one?
Yeah. So explain the sentences.
Yeah, so the idea is that I potentially am not going to talk to you about the facts that, or the punctuation or the exact sentence structure to this. I'm just going to try and get you to replicate it first, and then you've got that opportunity for the discussion afterwards. So you've got 3 sentences there. See if you can create another sentence that mimics the same pattern.
Okay, so we need to start with an adverb. So silently, Josh tiptoed through the library.
Yeah, fantastic. And again, I heard you whisper it there, the teacher, and you couldn't help it about starting off with an adverb. But we've now got that opportunity to talk about that with children. It's actually a great way of doing some spag, isn't it? This idea of doing spag afterwards. But again, using the chat feature for that works really well. Maybe using things like Padlet. I know we're going to be talking a bit more about that in another session.
Yeah, just one more point on that is it could be a good chance for editing and comparing the effect of sentences. So you could send out 20 sentences that all follow the same sort of pattern, and then the children could be trying to give some feedback of what effect does each sentence make and sharing them back in. So rather than just always getting the children to write something, they could be assessing them or grading them on their effectiveness.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very similar to this one as well, isn't it? This is another innovation game.
So this is from the Talk for Writing English booklet, my new one, which is out soon. So most of the booklets start with some of these games. So just want to show a quick example, similar game to Jamie's. You just got here. I ran out into the street, semicolon, it was pouring with rain. So sort of a year 5, 6 one, a little bit of a guide, and then it's their turn to write as many as they can. They can take a photograph of that and send it in, or record themselves, reading it aloud and send that in. So just another example from the booklet.
Have we got time quickly for this? Is one of my favourite ones, actually.
Yeah, quick invention game. So just here, another open-ended task. I think a lot of the remote learning ones, open-ended tasks work really well. So you've got a selection here of characters, settings, and objects. Then you've got some weather and mood. So the children could choose one from each, because we know ideas at home can be quite tricky for kids. So if you provide them with a few interesting things, they pick one from each line, and then they can make up a little story. So do you want to quickly do that, Jamie? Which ones do you fancy?
Oh, what do I want to go for today? So I'm looking at policeman, and I've got policeman with outer space, because instantly I've gone into some sort of space cop. Sounds like a bad 80s film, doesn't it? With a policeman, outer space. I mean, I suppose the obvious one is to lean towards a time machine with that as well. And then I've kind of jumped across to storm, because I don't know, it just creates a little bit of atmosphere, doesn't it?
Little challenge for you, Jamie. I think we might start the next session or a session in the future with a little story that you've made up. So put those things down.
Is that my homework?
Your homework, and come back and see. I want you to try and make it, nice and scary.
I think I could do quite an interesting one from that.
Nice. Lovely. So we hope you enjoyed that little video. Just a few ideas for you there about different games and warming up the word activities. More games like that you can find in the Jumpstart books if you don't have them. There's loads of different ideas you can get just to adapt into online. Next time we'll come back and we'll be talking to you about boxing up and reading the reader and getting that Padlet going. So thanks very much for joining us. Cheers, Jamie.
Thank you. See you soon.